Welcome everyone to the Adversity to Advantage podcast. Once again, I'm very excited. All across the way from Bali today, we've got Lynette Allen, who sort of reached out to me and was telling me a little bit about what's going on in her life. And I was so excited because she does things like women's sister circles. She does plant medicine. She's about rituals that help women, and she's a coach and does so many things. And these are things I'm very curious about. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Welcome to the show, Lynette.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to have you. So give our listeners just a little bit more insight. What do you do? What are you passionate about at the moment?
Well, what do I do? Well, I consider myself a modern day medicine woman, which means that I use plant medicine to empower women. I used to go into the corporate world in the last few years of me being in the UK. But since then, I've had a really massive life shift, and I've been using plant medicine for 3 years. And I really couldn't have continued what I was doing in the same way, having learned what I learned in those plant medicine experiences. So I now use plant medicine and ritual and meditation and sister circles and womb blessings and ancestral healing and all types of goodness and yumminess now to empower women. So I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it really quite differently now.
It really sounds like it. Yeah, I'm very intrigued. Give our listeners, let's give us a little bit of insight into what it was like for you growing up. So, did you? Yeah, let's go way back and just think. Do you think your parents, the education system, like prepped you for life in the real world? Like, what was your trajectory?
Oh God, you'd laugh so much. I mean, really. So my parents did a very, very good job. We had a very stable home. My parents were together. They never divorced. My dad died 12 years ago and they were still together. And I went to a private school when I was 6. I changed after about a year, I think. I went to a convent school. So I had a big influence by nuns at that point in my primary school. I then went to a grammar school for girls only. I was not the most brainiest, actually, at all. I had, I would struggle to get good grades, and my peers would be coming out with A's and A+ all the time, and my grades were perfectly okay by normal standards, but I was in a school where girls excelled. So I did struggle a little bit with that, but my trajectory was to go into banking.
Was it? Okay, so go real corporate, get into the banking setup, and yes.
That was where my work experience was. I went into banking. I mean, I can't think of anything further from what I'm doing now. But I did that I didn't go into banking, but that was what I was planning on doing. And then I got a job as a secretary. I don't quite know how that shift happened. And I was there for 18 months or 3 years or something. And I just couldn't. I was reasonably good at it. I was reasonably organized, but no, it was not for me. And I gave it all up to become a professional dancer. And I moved to Europe to dance at 21.
So that's quite different from the banking trajectory. Very, very creative in your body. Yeah. So was that a passion of yours? Something you really wanted to do?
That was a passion. I'd always been a dancer right from being 2 years old. My mum had sent me to dance classes because apparently she couldn't wear me out. I was always dancing around the place. So she took me to dance classes to try and wear me out, really. But I stepped off the plane at age 21. 4 hours later, I was in a carnival dancing through the streets of Athens in a blue feather outfit and silver high heels. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if the nuns could see me now. So I've had a few of those moments, if the nuns could see me now, but I'm 46 now, so the nuns are a distant memory. 40 odd years
ago. You're living your own life now. You're living your own life.
Yeah.
So you're a dancer, and did that work as a career for a while, or did you have to work? It did. Okay.
No, that was my job. Yeah, that was my job. I was a singer and a dancer for 3 years, and I danced virtually every night. I mean, we really didn't get any rest. I was rehearsing in the day from probably like 4 o'clock. I would sleep until probably 2, get something to eat, rehearse from 4 till 9, get ready for the show, be at the show for 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, dance until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So I became nocturnal, really, and it was full on. And we didn't get paid very much, but I didn't really do it for the money. They paid for our accommodation. We lived in a hotel, and we got paid peanuts, really. And in fact, sometimes we didn't get paid at all. So I learned Greek fairly quickly. I learned how to stand my ground in Greek and argue in Greek.
Okay.
And say, no, I need my money. I want my money. And so that was a really good experience. So much happened in that time. My mum will tell you that when I got back from that age 24, I left at 21, that I was quite a different person. I had more confidence. I was speaking another language. Yeah, it was a really good time. I think it's kind of what everybody should do, I think, when they're that age. Just something a bit off and go and travel.
You build your resilience. You find out a little bit about yourself. You, of course, it sounds like fun as well. You make friends and you push yourself out of your comfort zone in so many different ways. It's so character building at that age, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Because, I mean, because we had accommodation, they weren't actually that worried whether we got paid or not. But what we got paid was whether or not we could eat.
Sure.
So we had a choreographer turn up to one of our shows, and she sat in the audience, and she came backstage and she said, "Lynette, you're looking a little bit thin." I said, "I'm living off cornflakes. Tell them to pay me and I'll eat something."
Yeah.
Living off cornflakes. That's what we had 3 times a day, 3 bowls of cornflakes.
Which isn't great.
But we weren't being paid.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so much fun. It wasn't fun, but it was fun. I wouldn't want to do it again.
But I know what you mean, but those are like the memories that stick with you, right? Of like the adventures.
I just can't eat. I can't eat cornflakes anymore. I mean, I really just can't face
cornflakes. You just do plant-based.
I ate packets of cornflakes. Yeah.
Interesting. So where did that lead? What was the bit that sort of took you into more of your adult life?
I think when I got back home, I think I just realised I don't want to be doing this anymore. I was 24, and they were bringing in 16 and 18-year-olds. And I was sort of helping them, really, and then turned into more of a choreographer role and helping them. And I was putting myself towards the back of the show so I could see more about what was going on and what was happening. And that was really good too. But I just thought, I want to come home now. I think I'm done. So I came home and I got the first job I was offered, which was an organizer for events. It was at a really beautiful hotel. And I had no experience doing that. But she said, if you could be a choreographer and organize everything in a different language and with bosses who are not going to pay you, fight for your wages and everything else, you can do this job.
Yeah.
So that's how I got the job, really. And I stayed there 18 months before, again, it was an office job. And I think I kind of slowly started to die.
Yeah, your soul starts to die.
Yeah. And then I set my own business up, which is what I'd always wanted to do. And I became a reflexologist, first of all. And that's when I started to sort of earn my own money, stand on my own 2 feet, financially. I did very well in those first years. From that, my friend said she was doing this life coaching course. And I thought, oh, life coaching, what is that? And I looked into it. I went to somewhere in London that told me all about it. And I signed up, and then I became a life coach as well. From that, I got myself onto the Steve Wright in the Afternoon show, which is still going, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to become a celebrity coach. So I thought, I need a celebrity client, and then I can call myself a celebrity coach. So I emailed every single female celebrity I could find on the net, and the only one that replied back was Janie Lee Grace from Radio 2.
Okay.
So she had her free coaching session and she loved it. She sent me a glowing testimonial, which I then lost. And 6 weeks later, yeah, I know. 6 weeks later, I hadn't heard from her again. And I'm like, damn, I've lost my only celebrity client. What am I going to do? So I phoned her back up and I said, you might remember me. I was wondering if Steve might interview me on the show. And she said, well, he only interviews celebrities. I said, well, tell him to interview me and then I'll become a celebrity. So she liked that. He liked that. And then I got a phone call from Radio 2 saying, can you come in next week? So that's when it really started. Because then I found myself on the radio.
Yeah.
And from that, I got a book deal, which turned into a 4-book deal. So then I became an author.
So wait. So this is sounding really easy. This is sounding like, oh, and then this just happened, and then this just happened. And I've been running my business for 2 years, and I know that I know what the hustle is like, and the loneliness, and the drive, and the push. I mean, was it just like your stars were aligned, and it just sort of felt like you were lucky and it happened? Or did you feel like, I mean, you had balls to, if for want of a better word, to go, let me be interviewed on the show and like hustle for the celebrities and that sort of thing. What was the undercurrent of that time?
The undercurrent was, I didn't know what it was like to fail at that point. I mean, I was late 20s. I hadn't really failed at anything
at that age.
And I was just like, well, that's what I want to do. So I should do it, right? So when I was 19 or 18, I wrote a list of all the things I wanted to achieve in my life. You know, I could add to that now. In fact, I haven't got a list at the moment. In fact, I could write a new list.
Sure.
But on it was live in another country, speak a different language, run my own business, write a book, and jump out of an airplane.
I'm liking this list, yes.
And jumping out of the airplane was the only thing that I haven't done, and I decided I didn't want to do that.
That's fair.
So
yeah.
I chickened out of that one, but that was a choice. So I just had that list, and I had it on my mirror for many, many months. And so when I was about 28, I suppose, the book deal came. But I just started to write an outline of what I might write if I was to write a book. And it never meant anything. I was just thinking, well, it would be really nice to write a book. What would I write about? I don't know. And I started to jot a few things down. And then that was that paper gone somewhere. I didn't know where. And then when I got on the radio, which I thought was amazing, but I had no idea where that would lead.
Sure.
And really I wasn't clever. It sounds like it was clever, but it wasn't. So there was a book at the time, and in fact it's still out, called The Writers and Artists Yearbook.
Oh, yes.
And it's this thick.
Yes.
Maybe. And it's full of every single magazine and radio show you can think of. And I had that book, and that was my Bible. And I trawled through there, and I sent postcards of Lynette, the life coach, off to every single female name in there, offering them a free session. Well, one of those was Caroline Lenton, who worked for Crown House Publishing. She happened to be driving, because she was always driving all the way around the country, being a publisher, with a car full of books. She happened to be listening to the show. And she said she was so interested in what I was saying, she felt like she should pull over so she could concentrate on what I was saying. And then when she got back to the office, there's my leaflet on her desk. Now, I didn't plan that.
No.
I wasn't smart enough to plan that. That's just coincidence. But what I didn't do is have any resistance to being noticed, because I had never failed. I wasn't worried about not being noticed. I just did some stuff. And then she phoned me and she said, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I said, this is where I lie. I said, yes, I've started to write it. I've written one. I'm starting.
Yes.
And she said, great, send me your manuscript.
Ooh.
I said, okay. And then I had to Google, how do you write a manuscript?
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what a manuscript looked like. So then it was like double line spacing and thick margins and clear typeface and an outline and a skeleton. And so I was like, okay. So I put together 36 pages and sent it to her. And she said, we really like it. Can you write some more? We're going to publish it.
Wow.
And that was a book deal. So the thing is, it was easy, but I didn't crave it. I just put it out there. Now, I know now that that's manifestation. That's really good manifestation. I didn't know I could fail. I didn't have any worries about failing. I was just jogging along.
Yeah.
As you get older and the things happen, I think, you know, that sense fades a bit because you've been hit a bit.
Yeah.
You know, by life, I think.
Absolutely. So let's go there, because we haven't got that long for this conversation, and I'm curious.
You did ask.
And I'm curious about the adversity that has maybe shaped you. So any catalyst moments, or for me, I refer to them as rock bottoms. That's what I sort of resonate with from my own story. But what were the things that maybe happened that made you sort of wake up or think, shit, can I do this? You know, what went on for you?
Well, my dad died when I was 34. That was a big shock because he'd been ill for a long time, actually, like 11 years. But he'd been kind of functioning ill. So nobody really thought of him as ill, actually, after a while. As long as he took his tablets, it was all fine. But he died one day very suddenly, just out of the blue. Mm. And that really rocked my world because I had a house and a husband, but and my own income. But I just felt like the rug had been pulled from under my feet. So that shifted, that broke my heart. That shifted me, I think. That transitioned me into another part of myself, you know, like a more grown-up version of, you know, you're welcome to the group that now as you're getting older, people's dads die. That's just how it is. And then not long after that, my first marriage began to crumble. And that was a very, very difficult time. It was my choice entirely. And I was married to a lovely, lovely man. I'm still in touch with him on Facebook. So maybe he'll get to see this. I don't know. But he's a lovely man. But I just started to feel like, for me, I felt like I was dying. I felt like there was so much more. I did not know what I could do. And I had done quite a lot, you know, I'd published books and been on radio, and I don't know, that I just felt I don't want this to be it, like there's more. So I took a long time I took 7 months to work out whether this was the right move. I really did not want to make a rash decision. I didn't want to break his heart. I struggled for the whole 7 months. I had panic attacks and wrote my last book around the panic attacks. It was a very difficult time, but I did leave, and that was the right choice for me. And since then, I've remarried, and I've had a little girl who's now 7. I'm stepmom to Rosie, who I class as my own. I have 2 grandchildren. And really, the whole world just opened up. It was like I suddenly flowered, like I was a nice bud, probably. And then I went... And so we had quite a normal life. We lived in Suffolk in England for 4 years, and then we sold our house. And my husband said, I really want to leave the UK. I need to leave the UK. And I didn't want to leave the UK. So that was a difficult time because Rosie was there, my oldest daughter. She had a house. She wasn't going anywhere. I was going to be pulled away from her and my family and Mark's family. But we decided to do it anyway, and that's when my normal shifted significantly because he became involved in the plant medicine ayahuasca.
Okay.
And I never wanted to do anything to do with it.
Okay.
It was you're talking to the girl who's been drunk 5 times and has never had a cigarette. It was not ever, and he hadn't had anything like that either, ever before. But it was not something I understood or I wanted any part of. And then over the next sort of 6 months, I saw his journey with ayahuasca, which was a beautiful blooming and blossoming of him. And I could see, I was introduced to the shaman that he was drinking with and the people that were in his ayahuasca circle, and they were just normal people. Mm. And I thought, if I take my righteous hat off and do something I've never done before, I might learn something. So I decided one night, no, you're with Livy tonight, I'm drinking ayahuasca.
Yeah. And did you do it as part of a sort of controlled space or a ceremony or ritual in
Yeah,
itself?
absolutely. Yes, it's not something you just like drink on your own. Well, I have drunk ayahuasca since on my own, but having been quite accomplished at that point, and with my shaman's blessing. So yeah, this was definitely a ceremonial event, and it was very well held, and it was extremely safe and done with guidance and respect, and yeah, a completely beautiful space.
So what was it like, or what did you learn, or maybe what meaning did you give it, or what did it open you up to? One of those.
Well, I had a magnificent experience to start with. It was a big experience. I had what I would term as a rebirth, which sounds, I think if you've been through ayahuasca, that doesn't quite sound so strange.
Yes.
But for the uninitiated, that sounds quite frankly crazy. I'm aware of that. But in that space, you're actually dealing with quite a different realm. And it really opened me up to me, because after that first time, I had such a big night that I said, well, clearly I'm never doing it again, but I'm very grateful that I did it. And then in the next 2 years, I drank numerous times, and I became one of the shaman's assistants and a spirit helper, helping people through their journeys. So I did a lot in those 2 years. And I went from, not being able to, being in very much a subservient position to ayahuasca, to being able to work with her. You don't control ayahuasca. She very much has the upper hand, but she chooses some people, I think, to work through.
What do you think your intention was, or what were you looking for? Did one thing just sort of lead to the next with curiosity, or were you kind of going, I want to be on a spiritual path or change my life radically?
No, I didn't really have that. I've never really had that big goal. It was just the next reasonable thing.
Just being open.
Every time I sat in ceremony, it was a case of, there's a ceremony at the weekend, would you like to sit, or shall Mark sit? Do you want to sit? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm going to sit. And then I would sit, and I would be humble, and I would take my medicine, and I would just let ayahuasca work through me, learn what I could learn, and then wake up the next day having had a brilliant experience. And that's how it worked. And then Mark was a helper in the ceremony before I was. And there was a big group of 20. And I said to the shaman, I want to help in this group. And out of myself and Mark, I was considered the one that wasn't quite so trustworthy, because ayahuasca can really take hold of you and put you under for a short while. And then, of course, you're not available to help. So he said, no, you're not ready. And I said, but you told me the only way to be ready is to put yourself there with the intention of being ready. And he said, yes, I did say that. He said, do you want to be in ceremony? I said, yes, I do. He said, you're in. So that was a big turning point, because that night, or whenever it was, a few nights after, I was there to help 20 people. There was another helper too. It wasn't entirely on me and him, but I wanted to be a significant support, and I wanted to work with Mother Ayahuasca and through her. And I did well. I did well. I was lucid and I worked.
Are you essentially taking medicine as well, or are you staying completely?
Yeah.
So that's what I realized. I thought that the helpers were sort of totally clear and just supporting the people through their journeys. So you need to have presence and channeling.
You are totally clear. When you work with ayahuasca a lot, it's important to drink ayahuasca with the people you are looking after. Otherwise, it's a bit like saying, you take the car to Spain and I'll fly. If you need any help on the way, just let me know.
Yeah.
So we are in the air. You're not going to be of any help to me or any use.
Got it.
It's actually a different plane, a different realm. Your intuition pops open. Your energy field is different, and it's a lot of energy work. It's a lot of holding space. You don't actually do too much because you mustn't interfere in somebody else's journey unless they need something of you. But it's very important to be on the same sphere. In fact, nobody is allowed in that space who is not drinking.
Even the shaman?
Oh yeah, the shaman drinks the most of everybody.
Got it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But you learn to walk in that space. You learn to think clearly in that space. I set my intention to be of value to everything. This was not my journey that night. I set myself an intention. Tonight is not for me. I am on hold. Tonight is to be in service. And she absolutely gave me everything I needed to be in service.
You were talking a lot in the lead up to this of really good journeys or amazing experiences and that sort of language. And not everyone has that experience, right? So some people have quite dark experiences or experiences where they need to go to a different place in order to then maybe move up or create different meaning. What do you say to that, just for people who might be curious about? I'd like
to clarify what I mean by amazing experiences. When I say amazing experiences, my journeys have not been always happy and flying unicorns through the air. Far from it. I have been face down on the gravel path for hours at a time. I have been away from myself for many hours. I have been in very dark places. When I say amazing, it is because those are the most transformative journeys. That's what is amazing.
Got it.
And they are the gift. They are the gift. If you have, as I know some people I've drunk with, they've had just ceremonies where they have laughed all the way through the whole thing, where they have felt so completely connected to themselves that they have been crystal clear about their life and their life meaning and everything. I actually never had much of that.
Okay.
My journeys tended to be, I was being taught things or I was downloading information. And they were hard. They were hard journeys. In fact, I have my 3 stripes here because I earned my stripes in that time. This is what I can do.
Yeah.
Because the journeys were not easy, but they were all magical. They were all beautiful because of the intention I put into them and because of the learning that comes out.
And I love that because that relates to so many of the stories that we've heard on this podcast, regardless of the ayahuasca journey, but life's lessons, right, often come through those tough times. Change happens through the breakups, through the trauma, through the grief, all the things that just feel horrific and we want them to go away. But if we can just kind of finish, if we can just move through, I mean, the beautiful meaning, the purpose people get, the ability to give to others, like that's often the stories that we're hearing. And this is kind of allowing you to bring yourself into another realm to create that experience as well. Now, I want to spend some time, because I know you run some of this stuff. So obviously you started as sort of helping and developed your skill to be able to lead some of these things yourselves. Tell me a bit about the women's only groups. Now, I'm curious about the power. Before we started recording, I was a bit like, ooh, I'm one of those people that's always a bit like hesitant. And a friend of mine recently went, well, that's probably because you need to be in them, right? And I'm like, oh, damn it. But what is it? Why is it different? Why do we need to just be among our gender in order to have this powerful experience?
Okay. I'd like to go back a couple of steps just to clarify that I don't serve ayahuasca. I am far from being able to serve ayahuasca. Just to clear that up, it's a very, I think I'm being called to serve actually in the long term. I think that is her agenda with me actually, but it's not, I'm not there now.
Sure.
What I do now is hold ceremonial space with Cacao, which is a sacred plant medicine also. But it is not hallucinogenic, and it is something that's much more freely available throughout the world. So just to clear that up. So when I was taking ayahuasca, I was involved in mixed circles with men and women, which are beautiful. But we had a medicine woman visit us from Costa Rica. And I said, the beautiful Nicole, and I said to her in the kitchen one day, if I brought some women, because my background has been coaching women and having women's round tables and having women's networking events, and I've done it in the corporate world in London. If I had a women's only group, would you facilitate it? Would you fly over from Costa Rica just for it? And her face lit up and she went, yes. So I was like, okay. And you know me already. Yeah. I'm like, okay, can I get a date in the diary? I mean, is it just like that? It's like, yeah, just tell me when you want to do it. So we planned it. I called it a woman's blessing because my daughter is a unicorn, of course. And apparently a group of unicorns is called a blessing.
Okay. Oh, I see.
So that's how a woman's blessing came along, actually. But at the end of that, I wanted each woman to receive a blessing because I saw those events as my own personal blessing ceremony. They're huge. They're such personal blessing ceremonies because you go into that year for yourself. So I brought the women along and we had 2 of those circles. And they were just phenomenal. And in answer to your question, why women's circles? In my experience, it's because women open up on a different level when they are together. If we can let our guard down and get over what society has told us we should be doing, which is checking out each other's profiles and where she is in relation to me, if we can get over she's taller and I always wanted to be taller, or she's slimmer and I always wanted to be slimmer, or she's got bigger boobs than me and I feel like really embarrassed about my boobs. If we can get over that and communicate with each other as women, we are all valuable in such a way to each other. There is nothing like having a woman hold space for you and saying to you, I hear you, I understand, and letting you talk and not judge you for what you're thinking or what you have done. Because in a sister circle like this, the premise of them is, given your situation, I may have made the choices you have made too. From my perspective, I may look at somebody else's choices with my hat on and go, well, I wouldn't have done that. Well, that was just, you really shouldn't be giving up your children. You really shouldn't be leaving the corporate world. You really shouldn't be whatever. You really shouldn't be having a boob job. But in their circumstances, with their upbringing, with their experiences, life, there go I. And I may well have made those same decisions had I been in their shoes. And so I think it brings everybody down. If we can come down to the same level, or actually I should say come up to the same level.
Yeah.
Then that is magic, because we are all there for each other.
But are you saying that a mixed group of men and women couldn't get to that same place?
Not in the same way. The conversations that we have are so different. And I've been in mixed circles many times, but the conversations we have about all kinds of things, and I'm thinking particularly sexual things, incest or rape or abuse, or you actually, women would find it really difficult to talk about some of that very intimate stuff and what was done to them and how that made them feel and how they are healing that in front of men. So I'm thinking particularly of the sexual aspect. But, I think there is a place for mixed groups where so much can happen. Like, I did not know that women felt like that. I've had that myself with my husband, discussions on feeling vulnerable. He never told me. He said, I've never known what it's like to feel vulnerable. I don't really understand what that means. And myself and my stepdaughter went, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean you've never felt vulnerable? Like walking down the street, you've never felt like you might be attacked or followed? No. Why would I feel like that? Oh my God, seriously?
Yeah, that's I know there's power in men's groups as well, right? And
yes,
you don't run them, but for them to express vulnerability or to create that safe space is pretty powerful as well.
And I have some awesome male friends that I've sat in circle with, I've had those deep conversations with, and we've talked about all kinds of issues, and it's been enlightening. But there is something special about men's groups, I think, and something special about women's groups. And I wouldn't want that to be not happen, because we used to have that. But we've lost that, you know. All the women now that I knew when I was working in the city and everything, we all go home, we all go back to our children and our husbands and our lives. And, you know, to get out, to see a girlfriend, to have a drink and just go, seriously, man, I've just had the worst week. Like, what the hell happened there? That's just like, we have to plan that weeks in advance.
Yeah, yeah. And so what is I guess the purpose of, so if somebody's never been to a women's group or done a cacao ceremony, I've done a few of the cacao ceremonies, even though they've been mixed groups, which have led often to ecstatic dance or to just connection, and in that sense, exploring energy. But with your groups and what you do people set an intention in the lead up? Is it just a day? Is it a retreat? Like, how does it work? And what does a woman maybe get out of it?
Well, at the moment, I'm running two types of things. So one is a 2-hour A Woman's Blessing cacao ceremony, which I run here at the Pyramids of Chi, which is the most beautiful venue. It's a world-class, renowned venue. If you just look up the Pyramids of Chi, it's stunning. They have sacred geometry pyramids, 3 of them. And it's a true honor to be able to serve cacao there. And that's a 2-hour ceremony. We don't do any dancing. It's very meditative. It's very deep. But we sound heal as well. We walk around the room with different sounds and instruments. I sing. I brought back my singing voice from 20 years ago. Wow. Out of the wardrobe. Yeah. I have reinstated my microphone. And I also channel any words that come to me at that time in that deep meditative state now, which I never ever thought that's a sentence I would ever say, but it is happening, and it's a real beauty to be able to do that. So and then each woman receives her blessing, which celebrates the girl she used to be, the woman she is now, and the woman she is yet to become. Because we all are in 3 stages all of the time. The girl you used to be, those decisions she made, that life she lived, what she went through, she got you here. And the woman you are now, celebrating the woman you are now with everything that you've achieved, that you do, how you think, how resourceful you are, how switched on you are, that's because of her. And then the woman you are yet to become, because there's another phase. And right now, you have no idea what that phase is. None of us do. If people told me I would be serving sacred medicine 10 years ago, living in Bali with a different husband and a daughter, I just would have thought you were nuts.
And do you think you needed that adversity? So you needed the shakeup of the marriage ending and, you know, that shift to almost set you on the path of wanting something more and being brave enough, I guess, to be open to take some of these steps.
Yeah, because you can't go from the first marriage I was in with the beautiful 2 dogs that I had to leave, the 2 cars on the drive, the dual income, the no kids. You can't go from that to where I am now. That's too big a jump. So I really was taken on a whole big journey. Okay, well, let's give you some space. I think you need to perhaps leave this environment and create a new environment, and then get married again, and then have a baby, and and then it's kind of rolled around. Here's ayahuasca, but you don't have to do it. Your husband is doing it. You just have to notice his journey. That's all. That's the only thing you have to do. And then maybe one day you'd like to try it. I mean, if you were being guided, it's like, so it's that's too big a jump for us all. Actually, we all have to go through those things.
And there's an element of, whether you use the word faith or something else, of the not knowing, right? And just being open to following the next right path, the next right step, in order to...
That's what Oprah Winfrey says, and I love that. It's the next right step. Because even in law of attraction, if we scare ourselves too much with where we want to be, we're just going to put loads of resistance on the path. And that's where I think my success was so good when I was in my 30s, because I didn't have any fear. I just, hey, it'd be nice to write a book. Hey, it'd be good to run my own business one day. Hey, it'd be good to, do this.
So one step at a time, the next right thing. I want to go back to what you said about the little girl, the woman that you are now, and the woman you will be tomorrow. Because when we're in that state of transition, we need to learn new skills in order to get to that next level. Skills, or be open to different energy, or whatever it might be, that we can get a little bit resentful might not be the right word, resentful, resistant, kind of pissed off that the skills from the past are still affecting who we are now during that time of transition. But it's almost like the ceremony is thinking, let's compassionately look at our younger self. And even if we made mistakes and messed up and all that stuff, that was the person who got us to this beautiful place of connection, of wholeness. You know, there's this beautiful, compassionate feeling, energy to what you're describing that can then open us up with curiosity, rather than what I see many women do is this harsh critic of like, oh, I didn't work out today, or I didn't do this, or it's a man's world, or so-and-so is more confident than I am. We kind of chip away at our own self-esteem and then make it worse by just going on social media, comparing, like that's the world that people are living in. And you're kind of creating this space of connection and really seeing ourselves and the blessing that is within us. I'm just hearing the magic of that. But also the empowerment. That's what I'm hearing. The empowerment to leave that and be like, I can do and be anything that I need to be. Have I got that right?
Yeah, completely. Because I see my role, and it's refined over the years. You know, when I was in corporates, it was helping women to become more visible in male-dominated environments. It was helping women to find their voice. And that's still what I'm doing. But for me now, the refinement of this message is to remember who you are, is to go inside, because you have everything you need. She's already there. You just have to kind of line up with her and realize how damn good you are right now, and how damn good you were then, even though you didn't have the experience, even though you made mistakes, even though you could have done things differently. But the point is, because you didn't, you ended up in this place. And you've learned so much, and you've come through so much, and you're so resilient right now. So it's like, what would your 10-year ahead of you say to you now? You know, mine's looking at me saying, you're just doing really well. Keep going. It's just keep going, because you know what you're doing.
So really
just keep going. I'm with you. I'm going to meet you there. Keep going. And that's something that we don't give ourselves, is our own encouragement, because it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter what your best friend says. It doesn't matter what your husband says, actually. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. You have to learn to be true to yourself. You keep going, because you're doing really well.
And so do you, obviously you hold space for other women, but do you have any rituals or habits that you consistently practice for yourself to be on this plane, you know, all the time? I reckon you're not on it all the time, but what do you do for you?
I'm fairly religious at my rituals and my way of appreciating myself. So I get up at, well, usually about 6:30, 6:45, before my family wake up, and I drink cacao, and I put intention into my cup, and I meditate. And I didn't know how to meditate years ago. I mean, I used to say to people, I don't even, I'm just going to fall asleep. I'd just be really stupid at it. I'd just fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I learned I learned what that state was and how to achieve that state. And it's the place I go where I am clear. So I'm human and I'm normal, and I get in a pickle about things, and I get myself all stewed up about some things, and I worry about things. But I have a tool that says, okay, I know I'm going down that road, and it's where I am today, but I know it's not my best road. So when you're ready, bring yourself back. So I will do some things. I will put myself in water. I will have a bath or a shower or a swim, because for me, water is healing. Water is medicine. It helps my muscles. It helps my body. I feel like I'm washing everything off. It's a cleansing ritual for me. It's hugely valuable. So I put myself in water. which is what I was always told you should do with babies. So I think that helps too. And then it doesn't matter what time of day. If I'm able to, I will take myself off, I will make myself a cacao, and I'll find somewhere and I will just meditate. Or I will listen to Esther Hicks. I'm a big follower of the law of attraction of Abraham. And she's gold dust for me, because I've listened to so many of her programs. And when I feel like I can't do this, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm lost, or I'm just feeling so hurt or so sad, somewhere in the thing that I choose to listen to, there is a truth. And I then go, oh, okay, I'm remembering. I remember who I am. And that's all it takes, just a little thing, just a little sentence to bring me back and go, okay, I'm back. So I have tools that bring me back fairly quickly that I didn't have.
Sure.
But this is plant medicine has taught me all of this.
Amazing. And I love the gradual process and the fact that you need some habits yourself to keep you in that clarity, in that wonderful
every day
space every day. Fascinating.
Every day.
I bet you feel it if you don't, right?
Yeah, like sometimes we had to get up very early the other day to go out. Well, I got up really, really early to meditate. But, you know, sometimes I have to get up to catch an aeroplane, and I have to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I think, oh, my God, just get me on the plane.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, that day might be a write-off, because I might not get somewhere till very late. That happens fairly frequently. I travel quite a lot. But, you know, apart from those days, which are exceptions to my routine, every day wake up, I drink cacao, and I have time for myself, and then I'm kind of ready. I'm ready to be Lynette again. And
sorry, go ahead.
Some days I'm full of joy, and it's like nothing can touch me. And other days I get the wobbles, and I question myself, and my confidence goes a bit. But I'm a human, and I was here to experience that. So as long as I don't get caught up in that, go, oh no, as long as I don't get caught up in that and see this as, well, you know, you're a human. You're allowed to have a hormonal imbalance. You're allowed to have a bad day. You're allowed to feel guilty over something you should have done or didn't do. Just write that off. Just accept that. And then move on to who I am.
Regardless of how you're feeling, you keep the ritual in place, or the habit in place, because you know it feeds your soul and allows you to be who you need to be.
Yeah,
we're coming to the end of our time. I wish I could talk to you all day. I'm going to have to visit Bali, obviously, at some point. Before I ask my final question, where can people find you if they want to work with you or come out to one of your experiences?
Awomansblessing.com. And I have a retreat here in Bali on the 18th of October. So this might be aired just in time. The interesting thing about the circles that we run is we never know who's going to be there until the opening ceremony. I've had people hear about it 2 days before, fly in, get themselves ready, and then go, actually, I have no idea why I'm here in Bali. I just saw this and needed to be here. And then we have people who book 6 months out and plan everything to their final moment. So, yeah, if you fancy stopping everything to be 5 days in Bali with me, doing letting go rituals, daily cacao ceremonies, meditation with me, even if you've never meditated before, it's not important. Talking circles, drumming circles, fire ceremonies. Oh my gosh, so much goodness.
So much coming up. Sounds so exciting. We'll put that into the show notes. And finally, what advice would you now, so your current self, give to yourself, maybe that 12 years ago when your dad had passed away, or when you're in the midst of divorce? What advice would you give to yourself then?
I think exactly what we've talked about so far, which is everything's fine. Don't worry about the future too much. What is your next right step? Just go with what feels good. It's like if I was on a stepping stone path and there were lots of different pebbles I could step on, which one feels like instinctively the right way to go? Step by step, don't worry about it, that everything's covered. I have a good life. Life is good. you will continue to have a good life. Just keep your eye on the next right step all the time.
I love that so much, because it's absolutely how I've lived my life. And some people are like, how did you get from, because I was raised in a cult and, you know, was an alcoholic, depressed, you know, suicidal, like that place, right? And now I'm running my business and speaking on stages and doing all this stuff. And they're like, how did you mastermind this? Like, what was the thing? Did you have a 10-year plan or what? Never. Even now, I don't have any kind of plan of that length or excitement, you know, you know, no, the next right step, what feels right. And sometimes it starts with what doesn't feel right. So, being here is really like my energy, or it's really loud and like it feels like danger. It just feels like it's not healthy. And that might be all the information you have to step away from that thing, you know, in the first instance. And then slowly the person you meet or the next step illuminates, but keep moving forward in some capacity, even if it doesn't feel like it, right? So
or sideways steps are okay also. Like when I did leave my husband, I had no idea what was going to happen, but I did know that for me, that was my right move. And it took anybody who's done that, it takes so much courage. I loved my husband very much, but I just had to think about my next right move. And it was like, I have no idea what I'm stepping into. In fact, I was at an airport, I saw a sign and it said, leap and the net will appear.
Ooh, right?
It was a big billboard right in front of where I was sitting. I'm like, okay. And my nickname in my family is Lynette.
Is it? Of course, yes. Yeah.
Leap and the net will appear.
Just figure it out. And isn't it bizarre how we can see messages everywhere when we're open to...
Massive billboard in an airport lounge. I was sat there feeling so bad and so stricken and so worried. And I just looked up and I went, oh, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm on the right path. I'm with you there. I left my husband as well at the worst time. You know, it wasn't perfect. Didn't have a full-time job. I was hustling in different ways, 2 kids, right? But I just knew that I could visualize the 10 years ahead with him and the lifestyle that we would lead, and I couldn't do that, you know? As much as I cared about him as a person, I just knew that wasn't my direction, it wasn't my purpose, and I didn't know what this side held, but I knew it would be mine, you know?
Yeah, I think I felt probably similar. I just felt like for me, I need to do a 180 on my life, and that was, you know, it takes so much courage. I mean, I lost friends, I left a whole life.
Yeah, it's lonely.
I left a whole life behind.
Yeah, it's very, Brené Brown talks about braving the wilderness, right? And that sometimes you're just going to do it afraid, you're just going to do it alone. But that then leads to the deeper connections and higher purpose. Lynette, we could talk all day. I think we're going to have to get you on again. Let's talk divorce. Let's like go deeper into women's circles and all of that. I'm a little bit more...
Love that. I'm completely yours.
Excellent. We'll be in touch. Lynette, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's lovely to talk to you.